Good evening. If I could have Frank come on up. Give him a round of applause. You'll know why in a second. Absolutely. Jerry King. Absolutely. How are you? Good seeing you. All right. Well, it's an exciting proclamation to give this year. It is in honor of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And the reason I say it's exciting is because of the efforts you guys do during the entire month to bring awareness and help combat this disease. So, whereas it is estimated 268,670 men and women will be diagnosed with breast cancer for the year 2018. Out of those cases, 2,550 will be men and 266,120 will be women. Whereas approximately 41,400 of those diagnosed are expected to die from breast cancer. And whereas to increase awareness of this disease, October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And whereas this is an annual campaign designed to increase education about early detection, the cause, diagnosis, treatment, and support for survivors. And whereas members of the Turlock Fire Department will support breast cancer awareness by wearing specially designed pink t-shirts as part of the uniform in October. And whereas, in addition, other city staff members are authorized and encouraged to wear the pink Turlock Fire t-shirt every Friday throughout the month of October. And whereas any member of the public may join in supporting this important cause by purchasing and wearing one of these t-shirts for $15 from the Manual Medical Center gift shop, Crivelli's Shirts and More, or the Public Safety Facility Fire Administration. And whereas 100% of the proceeds will be donated to the Bill and Elsie Alum Cancer Endowment in Turlock. Now therefore I, Gary Sorseth, by the virtue of the authority vested in me as the mayor of the city of Turlock, and on behalf of the entire city council and all our citizens, do hereby proclaim October 2018 as Breast Cancer Awareness Month in the city of Turlock, and urge all citizens to join with the city of Turlock firefighters in this annual campaign to raise awareness and support for this very worthy cause. Congratulations, Frank. Thank you so much.
Good evening, Council. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to go and come and speak on behalf of the firefighters here that work in Turlock. First of all, we'd like to thank everyone that continues to support this cause. We think it's a very important mission in our life that we do things to serve. And it's like we serve others, and we serve our community. We serve, when people are in need. But most of all, we like to wear the pink t-shirt for the month of October for pink, for cancer awareness. But when we first started this mission 5 years ago, we had one of our firefighters that was diagnosed with cancer. He passed away just before he retired. He went through this process for like approximately 2 years. So when we went to the cancer at Manual Medical Center, one of the things that we talked about was, the type of cancer he had. Is there anything we could do for that type of cancer? When we met with the cancer center, they said, well, we just don't treat just one cancer. We treat all cancers. Everybody that comes here is treatable. So that was actually a really good statement they gave us. It kind of opened our eyes that there's other cancers. They are correct. There's other type of cancers, and all of them should be just as important as one or the other. So far, in 5 years, we raised $100,000 for the endowment. It's been a very good mission. I mean, it's very exciting. It's a pleasure to meet with people. And it's, like I said in the past, there's some really good stories and some sad stories. But most of all, I think most of anything else, that we're able to at least reach out to the community, let them know that we're thinking of them during this time of their, either sadness to go in their lives. And they tell us some really interesting stories that just kind of opens up our hearts and let us know that we're here for them. So anyway, we would like to thank the community to continue to support this mission. We love doing it. We love meeting people. And if there's any questions, you know how to get in touch with me. I'd be happy to help you with anything that you need. Thank you very much, and have a good night. And we brought a shirt to the council that one for each one. Thank you very much.
Perfect. And Frank alluded to it, but we'll be wearing our pink shirts through the month of October, and then our blue shirts the month of November for November. So thank you so much. All right, moving on to special briefings. We have none. Public participation. This is time set aside for the public to address the council on any item that they'd like. You'll be limited to 5 minutes. If you have a comment on a specific item, we'll ask you to wait for that item to come up. So with that, Mr. Nazrati, if you'd like to come up. Oh.
Hello. How are you guys doing? Last time I came up here, I apologize because this message wasn't for you guys, and it's probably generally not for you as well this time around. If you've talked to me the last few months, you know I'm not a big fan of signs, campaign signs generally. I think they're the most ineffective way to engage our voters. Ideally, we're going around knocking on their doors, getting out to their events, talking to them, and finding out what they care about and what matters to them. But unfortunately, we still get tens of thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, spent on this every single year. I believe that there are more effective ways, like a video ad campaign that you could run, like this one that people might be watching, are more effective ways to engage a voter. And campaign signs, to me, is just another example of politicians' inability to think outside the box on how to solve our problems. Voting simply because we've seen a name 1,000 times back and forth driving to and from work is not the most effective way to engage our voters. It's hoping our subconscious makes our decision for us come election day. Ideally, we're inspiring them and we're engaging them so that they're excited come election day to go out and vote. Lawn signs create passive, uninspired support. It's the status quo, really. Ineffective, costly, and lacking substance. Ideally, we can move away from them, but I know that with the current political climate, I have to engage a little bit, so I did a little spin on it. Someone once told me the way you do anything is the way you do everything, and I found this to be remarkably true. The way people engage in their smallest actions is usually will dictate how they behave throughout. So the voting public should know how candidates' campaign is likely how they're going to be governing. If they are campaigning on financial responsibility, finding new cost-effective solutions to our oldest problems, but are not showing that on the campaign trail, what makes us think that's going to change come election day? If they're running for office but are nowhere to be seen, presenting no new ideas, and are doing nothing to inspire our voters, we should likely assume they will be non-factors once elected. I believe our city needs new ideas. We need new energy, and we need elected officials that will inspire new voices to participate in this process and hopefully re-energize some of our older voices to get back into it, those that have been jaded by the political process and the politics of our local town. A lot of people ask me on the campaign trail, what does a councilman do? And I really think that depends on who you're asking. For some, it could be something that you shrink down to just a vote or 2 votes a month. But for me, it's not that, but it's also not the savior of a city. I know that for our city to succeed, we need an engaged and inspired community to come together. We have the people, we have the resources. It's just a matter of making the people believe it's possible. I'm not up here claiming to have all the answers. I do have ideas, but I know that I'm not going to be the only one that's going to be participating in solving these problems. Any assertion by myself or the people in this room that we're the only ones capable of solving it is something that discourages participation from the public, and we shouldn't be doing that. I'm running to create a council that creates as many positive outlets for the compassion of the people in the community. I am running for the opportunity to create optimal circumstances for the members of our community to thrive. Elected officials must instill a confidence in the public that their passion, their knowledge, and their expertise will have voice within City Hall. It will properly reflect the future of this town. Our city's greatness will not be achieved by the authority of some, but by collaboration of all. I eventually did cave and buy some lawn signs. There are some standard ones out there because I didn't want to lose because of my idealism. I know that we must be a bit pragmatic to achieve some of the greater changes that we want to see done. But I'm going to be thinking outside the box, and I think we need more people that can do that. And this is just one of the examples of how. So hopefully my next campaign won't have any lawn signs, but we'll see. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Strong?
evening. I wanted to present you folks a letter from a group I'm a part of called Be the Change Turlock. And it's to Gary Soyseth, actually. Dear Mayor Soyseth, we saw on social media sites that one or more of your campaign signs was recently defaced with a homophobic slur. We wanted to write you and tell you how disappointing it is to see members of our community behave in this manner, and to let you know we stand with you in the continuing fight against homophobia. We know your colleagues, friends, and family provide you with an excellent support system, but we also want to make sure and let you know we will continue to work diligently to ensure the right of every member of our community to live their best selves, free from harassment, racism, bigotry, homophobia, xenophobia, and misogyny. We believe in the resolution number 2017-243, Not in Our Community, opposing any acts of discrimination, that was adopted unanimously by the Turlock City Council on 26 September 2017, and we hope that all members of this council will use their voices and their actions to remind our fellow community members of this resolution and what it means to all of us. And I'm going to read that real quick because I have 3 minutes and 33 seconds. All right. So, and this is available online. You can go find this. Whereas bullying, harassment, and hate crimes have increased in cities and communities across America, and whereas the county of Stanislaus and the city of Turlock welcome and value diverse racial, ethnic, religious, and national backgrounds, and further recognize that our diversity is critical to the economic, cultural, and social well-being of our community. And whereas history has tragically taught us what happens when people stand silently by and allow acts of intolerance, hatred, and violence to occur, and whereas people often feel isolated, without hope, and helpless to do anything individually to end hate crime. And whereas people in communities across our nation have stood up and successfully opposed any acts of discrimination committed against their neighbors. Now therefore be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Turlock and its elected representatives stand up against bigotry, hate-based groups, hate-based crime of all kinds within our organization and throughout the community, and declares that no one shall be discriminated against because of race, faith, ethnicity, national origin, legal status, gender, age, disability, sexual orientation, or any other real or perceived difference. Be it further resolved, the City of Turlock stands together with all people of good faith across the nation in an effort to push back the rising tide of bullying, harassment, racism, and hate crimes, to proclaim, not in our city, not in our country, not in our community, not in Turlock.
Thank you so much, Dr. Strom. Appreciate it. Hey, thank you so much. Mr. Shaver, Terry Shaver? Okay, you're fine. Anybody else like to address the council on any item that they'd like? All right, thank you so much. Moving on, declaration of conflicts of interest and disqualifications, left and right, seeing none. Disclosure of top 10 maximum contributors can be found within the agenda. Consent calendar, are there any items to remove from this consent calendar tonight? Would you like to move what's the pleasure of the council? Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Vice Mayor Jacobs, seconded by Councilmember DeHart. Clerk, please call the roll.
Adopting the consent calendar, Councilmember Esquer,
Yes.
Councilmember DeHart,
Yes.
Councilmember Bublak,
Yes.
Councilmember Jacob,
Yes.
Mayor Soyseth.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. Final readings, we have none. I'll pause, and Dr. Strom wanted to just say thank you again. So appreciate it. Public hearings. Request to adopt the 2018 update to the East Stanislaus Integrated Regional Water Management Plan. Ms. Mark.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council. The item before you tonight is adopting the 2018 East Stanislaus Integrated Regional Water Management Plan update. The City of Turlock is a member of the East Stanislaus Integrated Regional Water Management Partnership, which includes the cities of Ceres, Houston, and Modesto. The objective of the partnership is to develop an integrated regional water management plan. A regional water management plan is a comprehensive document prepared on a region-wide scale pertaining to water resource planning and projects that have multiple benefits. The 2013 Regional Water Management Plan, which was adopted by Turlock City Council in February of 2014, had to be updated due to the Department of Water Resources amending the Integrated Regional Water Management Plan guidelines based on the passage of Proposition 1. Through the process of updating the plan, the partnership gained additional agency members, the City of Waterford and Stanislaus County. Included in the update of the plan is a list of identified priority water resource projects and programs by the member agencies, all of which have regional benefits. These projects are anywhere from conceptual to shovel-ready. Some examples of the projects included in the plan for Turlock would be the North Valley Regional Recycled Water Project, the Surface Water Supply Project, installation of potable and non-potable wells, wellhead treatment, as well as the installation of a water storage reservoir. Examples of other membership agency projects include Mustang Creek Managed Aquifer Recharge, the removal of Dennett Dam, as well as the restoration of the LaGrange floodplain. Lastly, the adoption of an integrated regional water management plan is a requirement to obtain Prop 1 funding, grant funding of any projects that are listed within the plan. And at this time, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
All right, any questions or comments for Fallon? Yes, Councilman.
Just a quick question, Fallon. Did you say removal of a dam? Did I hear that?
Yes, that's how the project is listed within the plan. It's the removal of Dennett Dam. It's through the Tuolumne River Trust, which I believe is the project that is to the west of the 9th Street Bridge there in Modesto.
Thank you.
Additional questions? Good question, though. Additional questions from the audience? All right, bring it back. What's the pleasure of the council on this item?
I'll advance A, Mayor.
All right, do you have a second? Second. We have a motion by Councilmember DeHart, second by Vice Mayor Jacob. Clerk, please call the roll.
Adopting the 2018 update to the East Stanislaus Integrated Regional Water Management Plan, IRWMP. Councilmember Iscar,
Yes.
Councilmember DeHart,
Yes.
Councilmember Bublak,
Yes.
Councilmember Jacob,
Yes.
Mayor Soisek.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Moving on to 8A, request to determine the closure for the annual Whitten Island Strom and Green Cars and Coffee event hosted by Whitten Island Strom and Green Insurance Agency is exempt from the provisions of the California Environmental Quality Act and approve a special event permit application. Amber.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me this evening. On August 20th, applicant Jeremy Benjamin of Whitten Ireland Strom and Green Insurance Agency submitted a special event application for the WISG Cars and Coffee event. This is an annual event. The event is proposed to take place on Saturday, October 20th from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. The application was accompanied by a street closure request. The original closure did include part of the county island, but through working with the applicant and city staff, we have eliminated that part of the closure and moved it on to only city property. So we have notified the county that this closure will be taking place, and they've assured us that we can proceed with that. The closure request is for North Mitchell Avenue between Canal Drive and the driveway just north of Whitten Ireland Strom and Green Insurance Agency. The proposed closure has been requested for 6 a.m. to 12 p.m. for event purposes and pedestrian safety. City of Turlock Traffic Engineering has reviewed this closure request. The City of Turlock Special Event Committee has reviewed this application. Property owners directly affected by this closure have been notified of this evening's public hearing. If you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them, and we also have a representative from Whitten Ireland Strom and Green here if you have any questions regarding the event.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Any questions or comments? Only that I don't like the WISG, the WISG, so that's why I just say it out. Yeah. I talked to your mom about this. Any questions from the council on this? Yes, Councilmember DeHart.
Is this the initial event, or is this the second or third or 12th?
This is an annual event. This is the first time a closure has ever come before you based on the direction that we've received from risk management. When Ireland reached out to us and notified us that this event has taken place before, they want to make sure they were doing things through our special event process the correct way. So this is the first time a closure has been before you, but not the first time the event has happened.
Any additional questions from the council or the audience? Yes.
I would like to say that I really
So for those watching, that was just a comment that the audience members appreciate the map, and I think that's something we're going to try and do as much as possible.
Absolutely.
Correct, yeah, thank you. Additional comments, questions? That's good. All right, bringing it back. What is the pleasure of the council then on this item? All right, we have a motion by Vice Mayor Jacobs, seconded by Councilmember Bublak. For the first resolution, please call the roll.
Point of order, Mayor.
Oh, yes.
This is for the first resolution?
Yes,
or-
just the
okay.
first, yes. Call.
Determining the closure of North Mitchell Avenue between Canal Drive and the driveway north of Winton, Ireland, Strawman Green Insurance Agency for the annual WISG Cars and Coffee event hosted by Winton, Ireland, Strawman Green Insurance Agency is exempt from the provisions of the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, in accordance with Section 15304, minor alterations to land of the CEQA guidelines. Councilmember Esquer,
Yes.
Councilmember Dehart,
Yes.
Councilmember Bublak,
Yes.
Councilmember Jacob,
Yes.
Mayor Soisek.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. What's the pleasure on the second resolution?
Advance the second resolution.
Have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Dehart, second by Councilmember Scare. Clerk, please call the roll.
Approving a special event permit application for the WISG Cars and Coffee event hosted by Winton, Ireland, Strawman Green Insurance Agency, authorizing the associated closure of North Mitchell Avenue between Canal Drive and the driveway north of Winton, Ireland, Strawman Green Insurance Agency for pedestrian safety on Saturday, October 20th, 2018, from 6 a.m. to 12 p.m., and authorizing the city manager to apply appropriate conditions and restrictions on the street closure. Councilmember Esquer,
Yes.
Councilmember Dehart,
Yes.
Councilmember Bublak,
Yes.
Councilmember Jacob,
Yes.
Mayor Soisek.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Councilmember. Thank you to the entire Winton Island Strawman Green family for doing that. Moving on, request to approve a public art mural to be painted at Columbia Park Pool by the art department students and Professor Jacob Weigel of California State University, Stanislaus. Eric.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. In partnership with the Mayor's Public Policy Initiative and California State University Stanislaus, Professor Jacob Weigel has worked with a group of students to prepare a design to be painted on the external walls of Columbia Park Pool. As part of the project, the group has reached out to local residents, including neighborhood children, to generate ideas based on color and imagery to help design the mural. All designs are generated from abstraction of the landscape, animals of California, and features in the water park. If approved, Mr. Weigel and the students will outline the design onto the wall, have volunteers paint the large areas of color. Mr. Weigel will then have students come in and finish detail and ensure the mural is professionally finished. External latex paint will be used to create the mural, and an acrylic coating will be applied to protect the mural from weather and graffiti. The expected life expectancy of the mural is 5 to 10 years. Obviously, we're hoping for the latter. Based on community feedback we got from a September 12th Parks, Arts, and Recreation Commission meeting that we actually held at Columbia Park, staff noticed residents within 1,000 feet of the area hoping to get as much public participation as we could at the park that day to get feedback on the mural. We had about a half a dozen community members come, expressed interest in the mural, and a few had concerns about spending general fund money on maintenance for the mural. And as part of that, staff is requesting an appropriation of $2,500 from a non-general fund account, Fund 2120 Tourism, unallocated reserves designated for public art projects for future maintenance and redesign costs associated with the mural project at Columbia Park. While the city intends to continue the partnership with the artist and the university, staff also recommend this appropriation in order to proactively prepare a plan in case the mural is defaced and for the eventual deterioration. It is important we have funds designated in advance to avoid any delay in property in maintaining the artwork, properly maintaining the artwork. And with me today, I have Professor Weigel and a couple of his team members, Myra and Jasmine. I'm going to ask them to come up and give a little bit more detail about the actual mural project. Come on up, guys.
Yeah, good evening, Council, Mayor. As Eric mentioned, this is a project that was initiated by Mayor Soisa through the Mayor's Public Policy Initiative and strengthening the partnership with Stan State, in this case particularly with the art department. I'm going to let the students talk a little bit about how they went about with the community outreach and the designs for this. But I want to thank especially Mayor Soyseth for his contributions and support for public art in Turlock.
Good evening. So one of the main things that was expressed from community members at the beginning of the project was the community involvement in deciding what would go on the walls. One of the things that we decided was that community outreach was very important to us. Jasmine, myself, and two other of the artists involved in the project developed workshops. The first two workshops were done with Parks and Recreation, Osborne School, and Westside Ministries. And then, do you want to talk about the last two?
Yeah, so, hello. So the last two, we actually did a call to community, having a community day where we met, I believe it was on a weekend, and so we just set up a chalkboard and kind of had just coloring stations for the kids during the when the water features was open. So that was really nice because we got to talk to kids and their parents, but mainly it was the kids that really enjoyed creating art. And so we kind of got to hype up the idea that there'll be a mural coming here soon, and what would they like to see on this wall. And with that, their imagination and just coloring, kind of came about it, which helped sort of develop a lot of the color schemes that we have today. And so, I think a lot of the children are excited to see this mural happening. One thing that when we were doing the workshops, a lot of the kids were like, oh, that's where I learned to swim. And so there seems to be a connection. And so hopefully this will become, sort of like nothing that is, it's bright and it's beautiful, but it's also part of the park. And as these kids grow up, it's something that, goes with them. Thank you.
Thank you. I can't express how much work has gone in with this group, but the amount of time they've put into these community events to garner interest in the mural. And along with that, if this is approved, we've also been contacted by Stanislaus State, the Communication Studies Department, and they're interested if this proposal goes forward that they would help us with the PR and make that a project for some of the students. So the small project started off pretty small and has generated a lot of interest and really strengthened our bond with the university that we have in town here. And I look forward as a staff member getting to work with these students as they come forward to help us. And I'll be happy to answer any questions regarding the staff report, and I would let them answer any questions regarding the specifics of the mural.
Absolutely. Any questions or comments? Yes, Councilmember Scare.
Yes, Eric or Professor, I just wonder, is there some kind of a clear coat we could put over it to make it last longer?
There'll be an acrylic clear coat put on at the end
It will have
to
it,
protect
okay.
from the graffiti and the weather, yes.
I think that you're hitting on a good point, though, because we had public art that we were dealing with earlier, right? The sunburst, the conversation about a wood statue, and previous councils hadn't really thought through what's going to happen to this art once it decays or once it gets ruined, or how to maintain it. And so that's part of the reason why there's that additional expenditure on top of the public policy scholarship that goes into this. So I think that's a great idea. Any additional comments or questions? Yes.
Did we get any kind of read as to how many of the community kids would be involved in actually painting the mural?
Well, the children who participated had 2 work days at Columbia Park during the summer, which was extremely crowded. They were at Osborne Elementary, Westside Ministries. So they've done a lot of outreach, and I know through the timeline that we've developed, we're hoping that the weekends we do, we'll send out registrations to our after-school students who are in the area. We'll also have them available at the Yerby Center at Columbia Park to try to get as many of the neighborhood youth involved in those 2 paint days that we're going to have. And then it seems a little odd, but we're also planning the grand unveiling on a Wednesday afternoon at 2 p.m. And you ask why? It's because it'll give us an opportunity to have those youth who participated in this process actually be there. We'll have walking field trips with our after-school programs from the schools that are able to walk that far, and then also minimum day in school districts, so all the youth who live in and around that neighborhood will actually be able to participate in the grand opening. So we're hoping that they're a very successful event.
Oh, that's great, guys. I think that the number that we have participating, that gives them the opportunity for ownership, and that's important, so thanks.
Additional comments or questions from the audience? Any comments or questions from the audience? All right, bringing it back. Before I ask for a motion, I just want to say thank you so much, Professor Weigel. There's a whole group of professors and staff members that came together and really thought this through, and then students came on board, and really you kept talking about a word, a community, right? This community was really important, and we didn't want to come in and project what we think should go into Columbia Park, but to listen and to put forward a mural that they chose colors, they chose ideas and hummingbirds and different things that fit in with Columbia Park. So I think it's great that we have this tradition again. It had a previous mural. How many years ago, Eric? What do you think?
I believe that was in '99.
Yeah.
And it
So-
lasted for a good 10 years, and it was, amazingly, it was a very abstract piece of art, but it rarely got any graffiti on it. So we're hoping that having all the community involvement out there, and the people who attended the community meeting were excited to have those blank walls filled
Yeah.
with something that was created by people who live in that area. So we're hoping that's gonna help prevent any kind of graffiti also.
Perfect. And then part of the reason why we used the money from the Public Policy Scholarship was that we hope this sparks future partnerships with Stanislaus State throughout the rest of the community, whether it be downtown or other corridors. So if there's other blank walls, whether they be private or public, we're really eyeing that to see. So this is hopefully a model and the first of many different public art murals that we have throughout the community. So thank you guys so much for your hard work. Really, thank you. So with that, do I have a motion to accept? Do I have a second? All right, we have a motion by Vice Mayor Jacobs, seconded by Councilmember Scare. Clerk, please call roll.
Approving a public art mural to be painted at Columbia Park Pool by the art department students and Professor Jacob Weigel of California State University Stanislaus, as outlined in the public artwork permit application and as recommended by the Parks, Arts, and Recreation Commission. Appropriating $2,500 from account number 120-10-12-130-47319 from Fund 120 Tourism Unallocated Reserves, designated for public art projects for future maintenance or redesign costs associated with the mural project at the Columbia Park Pool. Councilmember Esquer,
Yes.
Councilmember Dehart,
Yes.
Councilmember Bublak,
Yes.
Councilmember Jacob,
Yes.
Mayor Soise.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. Thank you so much for your hard work. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor Council.
Actually, one last question before we go. Do we have a starting date on when we'll actually start the work?
You want
Oh.
tentatively of the date?
Putting in the record, we're
We're looking for October 17th as being the date that is finished, so we would like to start as soon as possible, yes.
yeah, cool, very good.
So, all right, thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Very excited. Let's give them a round of applause for all their hard work. Moving on to item C, a request to approve the renaming of the Turlock Children's Play Park at Donnelly Park as the Augusta Bates Children's Play Park. Director Van Giller.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before I start the presentation, we have a very short video that we'd like to present to provide some background on the project for you and for the audience.
Wednesday, drill hole set poles. Set up work area, start prefab. And sort lumber. Thursday, frame platforms. Continue prefab. Start picnic tables. Start sanding and pre-drilling. Friday, install maze, more sanding. Install slide, more prefab. Saturday, install circular side. Spread ground cover. Start balance beams. Finish vents. Complete outdoor seating. Don't forget to bring a wheelbarrow. Sunday, finish decks, complete trim. Finish sanding, install maze cap, more ground cover. Clean up and cut the ribbon. 5 days. This park was built in less than 60 hours, a few hours ahead of schedule. 100% of the construction was done by local volunteers, 2,400 of them. 100% of the funding came from private donations. It was raised in less than 9 months. People were so supportive that there was extra money afterward to give to the city for upkeep. All of this, the fundraising, recruiting volunteers, getting the word out, and the original idea for the park was spearheaded by one person, Augusta Bates. If all of this sounds extraordinary to you, it is. Most parks simply do not get built this way, and most people are not like Augusta. They don't believe they can bring this kind of change to their community, much less in such a short period of time. But perhaps the most amazing thing about all of this is that when Augusta Bates inspired everyone to make this happen, she was only 10 years old.
A little girl by the name of Augusta Bates, the daughter of former Mayor Brad Bates, decided that they wanted to go play at a park. So they drove up to Oakdale and spent the afternoon at the Oakdale Play Park.
When this project started, it was a 10-year-old young lady in Turlock who came forward and just asked the question on why we couldn't have a playground like they had in Oakdale that had been built by the community. And I think what was great about it was we couldn't answer her question.
This wasn't just a person saying fix something or do something. It was how can we build this? Augusta started making presentations to various groups throughout the city, asking for donations and support.
A lot of times they would try and introduce me, and I would say, no, this is your speaker over here. And there was always a little bit of, well, you know, question, concern, and Augusta would get up and, you know, give her presentation just like she always did. And I always found it was just amusing because they really didn't expect a 10-year-old girl to pretty much take the podium and give the presentation and answer all the questions.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We thought it was important to provide a short snippet of the documentary that was put together. This is available in full length online if there's anybody that wants to go on and watch the full length version. But we thought it was important, especially because it's not lost on us that there may be many community members who either were too young to remember that project or maybe they're new to our community, and so we thought it was helpful to sort of give them that background. And so as we are coming upon the 20-year anniversary of the Play Park project, there was an initiative to bring forward a request to rename the Turlock Children's Play Park the Augusta Bates Children's Play Park. The application has gone before the Parks, Arts, and Recreation Commission. They have recommended this for your consideration, and it has followed the process that you have set forth for other renaming requests. What you should know is that as part of the original request, there was only the desire that the city's website reflect the renaming, should you so choose to approve that. However, staff is recommending that we remain consistent with other renaming efforts or initiatives and include a sign, or an updated sign, I should say, at the site, just so that, you know, it's completely acknowledged that there has been a renaming, and to not create any confusion, and also to be consistent with how we've handled other requests for renaming by having a sign on site. And so with that, Stacy, do you mind pulling up that picture? I'd like to just sort of show what that would look like in terms of an updated sign. So this is the sign that is over one of the main entrances now. And what our goal would be, if council approves this request, is to limit the aesthetic changes to the sign as much as possible, to keep the original spirit of that look, but also to keep the costs down as well. And so what staff is recommending as part of the proposal tonight is that we would remove the word Turlock and simply replace it with another board that would read Augusta Bates, and it would be done in a very similar script, keeping with sort of that childlike writing. And so we've gotten some bids, and we're looking at about $150 for that, which that cost would be covered by the applicant that's making the request, which is Mr. Bates.
And so with that, as you can tell by the video, it's a important piece of our history as a community. I think that it's an inspiring story for young and older people that you can take an idea and you can make something of it. And so the item before you tonight is a request to consider renaming the Turlock Children's Play Park, the Augusta Bates Play Park, in recognition of the efforts that Augusta led when she was 10 years old, and to honor the contributions that she made to the community. Mr. Bates is here tonight, and he does have a couple of comments.
Thank you, Allison. Council, Mayor. Right now, Sergeant Holman is probably a little nervous because every time, when he sees me coming up here and I haven't turned in a blue card, that it sets him off. But Sergeant, tonight I'm actually on the agenda. So the one thing that I would like to do, I'd like to thank staff for the presentation. I really would like to focus on the video that's going to be available, and I'll give you the website. The full version is 22 minutes long. And I would like to acknowledge the gentleman who put this together. His name is Brian Zarka. Brian he really is an artist. He has that artistic ability to take something that we can't see and turn it into something special. I equate it almost to somebody like a sculptor, like Betty Saletta here locally, that can actually take a pile of clay and turn it into a statue of John Mitchell in the park. Initially, we just asked Brian to digitize 2 cardboard boxes of material that had been sitting up in an attic and deteriorating. And it was really just an archival project. Brian came back. He actually does projects called honormentaries. That's kind of his profession in videography. And honormentaries are things that take important life events or military service, things like that, and he puts them into a digital format, but it's really a story format. Brian came back to me and said that he saw a story in the boxes, and it's not the story of a construction project. It's actually the story of, well, the reason they call it the builds is because one of the things the consultant told us 20 years ago, and it really didn't have the impact that it does now, is that you're not just building a park. When you bring close to 3,000 people together and do something like this in 5 days, there really is a sense of community. And I think one of the reasons that the park has stood the test of time so well is that the community really has embraced taking care of it with service club work days, and I have to compliment city staff for all the work that they've done. Again, I would like to point out the video. The address of the video is www.vimeo.com/208-191-013. It's about 22 minutes long, and it can be downloaded. It can be used for personal, business, community, youth organizations. Everything has been vetted and attributed correctly so that there are no questions about usage of materials, that kind of thing. So it's free for anyone to use. Again, I'd suggest you watch it because it really does focus the highlights of Turlock. But again, I think if you watch it, it really is the story of a community more so than it is a chronology of a work project. So with that, I hope you consider the request, and again, thanking the staff for 20 years. It's still in remarkably good shape and well taken care of. Thank you.
Can I ask a question real quick, Mr. Bates? What are the digits following the /208?
Yeah. www.vimeo.com/208-191-013. And you can watch it, or it can be downloaded into any format and shown.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have no further comments, council, unless you have questions.
Questions or comments from the council? Yes, Councilmember Scarr.
Just a comment. I happened to attend the park meeting that night when they did the proposal. and listening to the story, even though I've been Turlock all my life, I didn't remember all this, and all the information they went through, I thought it was kind of cool. 10-year-old girl made it happen, so it kind of made me think of, one of the things I constantly tell people is, don't tell me one person can't make a difference. And here's proof that one person can make a difference. So, I like it.
Additional comments or questions? What about from the audience? Any comments or questions? All right. Augusta is not. No,
She's not here
Sorry. You can say. All right. Additional comments or questions, or what's the pleasure of the council?
Move to approve.
All right.
Second.
All right. Perfect. We have a motion by Councilmember Bublak, who's taking this one. All right. Councilmember DeHart, you can take this one. Second by Councilmember DeHart. Clerk, please call the roll.
Approving the renaming of the Turlock Children's Play Park at Donnelly Park as the Augusta Bates Children's Play Park, and authorizing the Parks, Recreation, and Public Facilities Director or his/her designee to direct the necessary changes to the city website to read Augusta Bates Children's Play Park and post an updated sign at the site of the playground at the applicant's expense. Councilmember Esquer,
Yes.
Councilmember DeHart,
Yes.
Councilmember Bublak,
Yes.
Councilmember Jacob,
Yes.
Mayor Soisek.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. Thank you so much. Thank you for all your hard work. Moving on to item D, request to approve the purchase and delivery of 4 additional 35-foot long compressed natural gas powered low floor transit buses. Mr. York, sounds pretty cool.
It is. We're looking forward to it. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Over the past year and a half, I've presented to the council on a few different occasions regarding the city's transit fleet, as we've sought to improve both the quality and the quantity of the buses that are available. And even though we've addressed and resolved routes, schedule, customer service issues, our transit fleet has been and remains our most critical challenge for service delivery at this point in time. The good news is we're anticipating to take delivery of 4 new 35-foot buses from Gillig in November, so it's right around the corner. These buses were authorized by the council last year, and they're going to replace buses that have exceeded their useful life or really are intended more for daily ride service. We have a lot of our mid-sized buses that are doing fixed route duty, and so this will allow them to be used really where they're intended. This is going to be a big help for us. And so we've made a lot of progress, and tonight we plan to continue that progress with the purchase of 4 additional 35-foot CNG buses. This purchase would be made under the existing agreement between the city and Gillig, and the buses would be identical to the ones previously purchased with the same features and options. Those features and options were finalized earlier this year after discussions with myself, maintenance staff, and operations staff. More details on those options are included with the staff report as attachments. In terms of lead time, it's a fairly long one. We're looking at about an 18-month lead time from the date of the order, which is similar to our last order. The total purchase price, inclusive of all taxes and fees, is just under $2.4 million for these 4 buses. With the recent discussions that have been taking place in the community regarding finances in the city, I want to make it very clear that this purchase would utilize federal transit monies for 100% of the costs. These would come from the city's annual apportionment from FTA. There would be no local match required, and there would be no general fund monies used with the project. In addition, there's a possibility that the city may receive an Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities grant, which includes $600,000 for a bus. And so if that occurs in the near future, then those monies would offset the federal funding for one of the buses, and those federal funds would then be available for other transit purposes later on. So I'll continue to work with our housing services staff to track progress with that grant application. While these buses are identical to the past purchase in terms of features and options, the price of each bus has increased slightly over the previous purchase price by just under $4,600 per bus. This is reflective of the price increases that are tied to the producer's price index, and they are allowable under the agreement that we've executed with Gillig. As I've shared previously, Gillig buses have a reputation within the industry as solid, long-lasting performers, which means that not only will our citizens benefit from larger, high-quality buses, but taxpayers benefit by having more reliable vehicles with less maintenance costs. We're looking forward to continuing to raise the bar in terms of the quality of service that we provide, as well as positioning the city to provide future transit services without having our hands tied due to fleet constraints. And if approved this evening, staff would then place the order later this week. looking around to see if Norm is here. Norm, thank you. I'd like to introduce Norm Reynolds, the Regional Sales Manager for Gillig. He has a few comments that he'd like to share with the council. Come on up, Norm.
Honorable Mayor, council members, like Wayne said, my name is Norm Reynolds. I'm the Regional Sales Manager for Gillig. And on behalf of the 900 employees of Gillig, we would like to say we hope that you decide to move forward with this purchase. And should you decide to move forward with it, on behalf of the 900 employees of Gillig, we want to thank you for supporting American jobs, California jobs, and local jobs. As well, as Gillig has been in business now for 127 years continuously, we've been in our new factory for only about a year and a half, and would like to extend an invitation to all of you, should you ever be in the Livermore area and interested in going through our new state-of-the-art factory, please contact Wayne or myself, and would love to take you on a tour of our new plant. Thank you.
Thank you, Norm. And so that concludes my presentation this evening. I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Questions, comments for Mr. York? Yes.
Sorry, Mayor.
No problem.
Mr. York, you used two words together that kind of caught my attention. Can you speak to the term useful life? It seems to me there may be a bit of misunderstanding as to how long they do or don't last before we turn them in. Maybe you could clarify that for us.
Sure. The term useful life is actually defined by the FTA for anything that has a federal assistance associated with it. And so for a bus of this size, that's 12 years. That's the useful life of a big bus of this nature. And so what that means is that is the target that we're supposed to hit in terms of managing our assets. And so if for some reason it starts having problems before that time, we're going to endeavor to try and, if we need to do an engine overhaul, if we need to do different things to get it to the 12 years, that is the goal that the FTA has set for us. That is the useful life. And until we've reached that mark, if something happens to the vehicle, then we owe the FTA back a proportional share of whatever the funds were to purchase them. So when we use that term useful life, it's a predefined number of years or miles. In our case, we hit the years before we hit the miles. But each type of bus has its own predefined useful life.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yes.
Have we ever been in a situation where we've had to repay the FTA for a Gillig bus or a similar bus?
No, we've actually not had these 35-foot Gillig buses before, so we have been in a position where that was a possibility because of a bus fire that occurred, not the one, this last one in February. There was actually one many years ago. And so there was that potential. FTA did not ask that we do that at that time, but it's at their discretion. They're able to request that. We generally have the two options under federal regulations. We can either pay them back the proportional share, or we can take any insurance proceeds we receive, if it's affiliated with an accident, something like that. And as long as we put it towards the purchase of another bus, that usually satisfies their concerns as well. So we would generally opt to do that option.
Additional comments or questions from the audience? Yes. To the microphone, to the microphone. Oh, yes, sir. Come on up, yep. And Mr. Puffy.
Hey, how are you? Did I talk to the microphone or to you? So you mentioned that it includes the same features as the old ones. Does that include some of the more modern stuff that we see in buses, like Wi-Fi and charging stations? Do those buses include that?
Right, yeah, good question. So when I say it includes the same features, it's the same as the buses that we're going to be getting in November, the new build. It includes all those same features. So it does have USB charging ports for folks to charge their phones on the bus. It doesn't have Wi-Fi in yet because that's part of a larger ITS project upgrade. So what we want to do is we don't want to piecemeal together various tech components. We want to actually go out as one big project and make sure that all the different tech upgrades work together. So that is coming, but it's not part of the build.
Okay. And then my second question, I'm not really too familiar with compressed natural gas. And there was a recent initiative in New York while I was out there where they were replacing their fleet with electric buses. How do these compare to some of the newer buses that have lower energy costs, environmental impacts?
Okay, so in terms of environmental impacts, the zero emission electric buses are going to be better. The Air Resources Board is working on a final rule right now that would actually mandate requirements for transit agencies to move in that way, and I foresee us moving in that direction. But for right now, what we're trying to do is utilize our existing fueling infrastructure. So we have established CNG fueling infrastructure at the bus parking site. And so basically stabilize our fleet, and then once we have a stable fleet, using our existing fueling infrastructure, then start the transition to electric. It's still relatively new within the industry, so we don't want to be the first ones out the gate. There's some agencies that have been using it for many years now, but we want to be careful, I guess, strategic in moving and migrating to electric. But there are benefits there, certainly.
And when do we see ourselves starting to make that transition? Because if we're spending, what is it, $2.4 million, and we're going to potentially be making that transition around the horizon, would it make sense for us to hold off on making investments to updates to the fleet?
I don't think it would make sense at this time from my perspective. I think we need to get to a spot where we have a stable fleet that can provide all the services that we're having now. Right now, we're using some buses in a way that they're really not intended. We're using these short, mid-sized buses, gasoline-powered buses. I'd like to get those off the road and have CNG buses that are sufficient size and capacity to provide the service. But then start working towards electric. And so I don't know an exact answer to your question. I think it would be within the next couple of years. But what I would suggest is actually deferring to our short-range transit plan process. It's actually one of the items on the council agenda this evening, is we're going to be hiring a consultant to sit down with us and take a look at our operational needs, our financial needs, hear from the community, look at air quality, look at everything, and propose a plan that includes capital expenditures. And I would sort of look to them and look to that process to give us more of a guideline on, okay, at this point, go ahead and start working towards electric.
Okay.
I would envision within the next 5 years, though, as an estimate, that we're going to start moving that direction.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, Mr. Puffer.
Hi, Bob Puffer, Turlock, California, and I promised I wouldn't come up here tonight, and I broke a promise. You said we're buying 4 additional buses. This is to augment our existing fleet? And are we opening up another lineup? I mean, is there a reason, or just to have spares, or what's the reason for wanting to get 4, or just because the money's available? Or?
Yeah, no, it's not because the money is available. I mean, that's certainly part of why we're doing it, is because the money is available, but there's an operational need to have them. So what's going to happen is we have some buses now that have reached and surpassed the end of their useful life. And so they're going to actually be replacing those buses. And that's a few of the buses. Then we also have buses that are being used outside of their intended purpose. Really, they're mid-sized buses for paratransit, and they're being used for heavy-duty use, fixed route, 27 runs a day. And so this will be using heavy-duty buses for heavy-duty purposes. It's essentially realigning the fleet. It's also going to give us a couple of additional buses. Right now, a spare ratio is something that we're struggling with. If we have several buses go down, which can occur in the summer when we have, heat issues and ACs go down, to have a few extra buses available so we don't have service disruptions is important to us. And so that's an added benefit that comes with this too. As far as 4 additional, that's because we bought 4 last year. That's that word additional. It's just because the parent agreement with Gillig is for a minimum of 4, maximum of 10 buses over the 5-year life of the contract.
Okay. Just one more question. Each of these buses are going to have a fare box, which costs a substantial amount of money. Is this price of $2,394,265 include those fare boxes, or are we going to have to put out some additional money to get these things on the street?
Sure. It includes the cost of the fare box. It's built in. You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
All right, additional comments or questions from the audience? All right, bringing it back, what's the additional comments or questions, or what's the pleasure of the council on this item? Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Vice Mayor Jacob, seconded by Councilmember DeHart for both resolutions. Clerk, please call the roll.
Approving the purchase and delivery of 4 additional 35-foot-long compressed natural gas CNG powered low-floor transit buses from Gillig LLC of Hayward, California, in an amount not to exceed $2,394,265, Fund 426, pursuant to City Contract Number 16177 for City Project Number 18-55, purchase of 4 Gillig 35-foot CNG buses 2018. Authorizing the city manager or his/her designee to obtain transit bus-related equipment, installation, maintenance, and repair services from Gillig LLC of Hayward, California, related to transit vehicles purchased from Gillig LLC and contingent on availability of budgeted funds. Councilmember Esquer,
Yes.
Councilmember DeHart,
Yes.
Councilmember Bublak,
Yes.
Councilmember Jacob.
Yes.
Mayor Soisa.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Wayne. Moving on to item E, a request to direct staff to order a change to the contract documents for City Project Number 17-30, West Main Corridor Rehabilitation, to effectuate an opening in the median island along West Main Street at the intersection of Radio Street. Mr. Bray.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. The item before you tonight directs staff to issue a change to the contract documents for City Project Number 1730, West Main Corridor Rehabilitation, to create an opening in the median at the intersection of West Main Street and Radio Street. This project was awarded on May 22nd on 2018. Sorry, it was awarded at the May 22nd, 2018 council meeting. During this meeting, the intersection at West Main and Radio was discussed with particular regards to the closing of the median. Staff committed to have further discussions with the affected business owners, internal staff, and concerned members of the council, and evaluate potential options. After discussion and evaluations of the options, staff prepared a design to accommodate turning movements in a manner that is safer than the pre-construction conditions. That's really small. Stacy, can we make that larger at all? The proposed median will construct a left turn pocket for eastbound traffic wanting to turn north into the driveway at Radio, as well as allowing northbound traffic to turn left onto West Main. The recommended design will construct a turn pocket which will allow the vehicles turning north to queue into a dedicated turn lane as opposed to blocking the through traffic. That's probably good.
Yeah,
that's good.
perfect.
Thank you. The median nose on the westerly median will be held back far enough to accommodate left turns from trucks making the turn from the south headed west. Signs will be posted to prohibit U-turns from eastbound traffic, as well as all left-hand turns and U-turns from westbound traffic. And a pedestrian refuge island will be constructed in the median, as well as bulb outs on the north and south sides of West Main to the east of the intersection of Radio to help make the pedestrians more visible. The estimated cost for this change are $40,000. The $40,000 is 1/2 of 1% of the total contract amount, which is $7,465,000. At the time of the award of bid, sufficient contingencies were identified and appropriated at that time, so no additional appropriations are needed at this time. Since the majority of the items of work are already covered under existing bid items, these changes will be tracked and reported back to council when the final quantities are known. So it is an estimate at this time. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments from, yes, Councilmember Scare?
Yeah, Nathan, just again, just want to revisit the left turn. Because I see the left turn is eastbound, correct? So if you're going eastbound to West Main, you can make the left turn, but you cannot make a U-turn.
That is correct.
And so the left turn is directly into the business, correct?
The left turn allows you to turn left headed north into that driveway, just to the right of that median or the pedestrian bulb out.
So essentially that is strictly for the truck traffic for that business, because most cars won't be able to use that because they're not gonna turn into that business. That was just what I was looking at. I was wondering if that was,
No, you are seeing it correctly. It is to facilitate those turning movements.
okay, so I'm assuming then because of this, we reached an agreement with the two businesses?
I have reached out to both business owners today, presented the situation, and they were both in agreement and happy with the compromise.
Yes.
So, Nathan, it kind of sounded like you were surprised too. So, Councilmember Scare and I were seated at the table, and we were told absolutely no way. So, when did it change, and why?
Yeah, so we've evaluated, after that meeting, we evaluated a lot of different options. We looked at the larger scheme of this project of potentially sending trucks down local streets that aren't designed to accommodate that traffic, a median opening that we weren't addressing down the road. And so when looking at all of those different options together, it seemed like an opening was probably in the best interest. An opening not designed the way that it was during pre-construction, just an opening with no left-hand turn lanes and such. So we were able to design a median that allows the turning movements in a safe fashion.
Additional comments or questions? How about from the audience? Additional comments or questions? Okay, bring it back. What's the pleasure of the council on this item? Yes.
So, I appreciate you did this. I know I brought it up at least 3 times as we were going through this, so I have a little frustration that we're spending a dime in change orders, because it was kind of promised at one point with the dialogue and when they had the breakout sessions, and so I've brought it up several times, and I'm just kind of can't wrap my head around that we have to do a change order when I wasn't like calling, attention to something that wasn't real, and now I have to spend money that we don't have.
Well,
but-
let me ease your mind, hopefully. The changes that would occur if this is moved forward tonight are through items that are already calculated and identified as a bid cost. And so these items are theoretically in competition with other bidders out there. They're not arbitrary, non-competitive rates. These items, if we had moved forward earlier, we would have still realized the same amount of items. We haven't installed any infrastructure that we are ripping out and essentially redoing. So in terms of timing, we haven't wasted any money, I guess.
Okay, just to finish up on that, I was an advocate of this the whole time. I kept saying we should do this, we need to help businesses. Let's not make them run through residential areas running over children. So I'm totally behind this. I just feel like sometimes maybe I'm not heard, because it just seems like we should have planned for this. It was part of our discussion. I'm not angry at you. I'm just sharing that it is money that can be spent somewhere else, because we're gonna have more change orders. We know that, so anyhow.
Additional comments or questions?
Move to accept?
Second.
So we have a motion by Councilmember Bublak, seconded by Councilmember Scare. Clerk, please call the roll.
Directing staff to order a change to the contract documents for city project number 17-30, West Main Corridor Rehabilitation, to effectuate an opening in the median island along West Main Street at the intersection of Radio Street. Councilmember Scare?
Yes.
Councilmember Dehart?
Yes.
Councilmember Bublak?
Yes.
Councilmember Jacob?
Yes.
Mayor Soisa?
Yes, motion carries 5-0. Thank you so much. Moving on to staff updates. Looks like we have no updates for 1 and 2. Mr. Bray, do you have a verbal update on wash softener and window change out permits?
I do. Thank you. Council, last meeting there was a discussion on in the public participation session on the building permit, specifically the water softener permits and the window changeouts. And so I just wanted to follow up with some quick information. Water softener permits in the city of Turlock cost $263 and are based on full cost recovery. The costs for the surrounding agencies vary from $263 as the high, which is the city of Turlock, to $41.31, which is the low for the city of Tracy. It is important to note that some of the surrounding agencies are subsidized by the general fund, and the level of subsidy is hard to calculate. So while the Turlock Billing Division is an enterprise fund, it is expected to achieve full cost recovery. Last year, a total of 7 water softener permits were issued. Staff can bring this back for further discussions if the council would like to further evaluate either reducing the fees or at least just discussing them if that is the desire.
So, thanks so much. I think that is the desire to bring that back, and then also to bring some data back to us about some average cost of actual water softeners. I think the frustration folks have is that when the cost of the actual apparatus you're installing is less than the permit process or permit, it doesn't make sense to people. So I think we should do that, but I think we do need to keep moving forward with it in mind that there is going to be a subsidization. I can't even speak tonight. So we're going to be
Subsidy.
I can't. I'm not even going to try. So this. What about window change permits?
Yeah, sorry. Window change permits, the discussion was that a lot of agencies don't even have permits to install windows. And there is some truth to that, even in the city of Turlock. If you want to change out your window in terms of the glazing, there is no permit for changing out the glazing or the window panes itself. But if you want to change out the actual window, there is a permit required for that. And the city goes out to ensure that the sizing is correct, because a lot of times people like to upsize or resize their windows. So they check to make sure that the sizing is correct. They check to make sure the moisture barrier or the flashing around the window is installed correctly, and so it doesn't develop mold issues. And they also check out any structural modifications or anything. And so when a homeowner does want to replace a window, and it's not just the glazing, there is a permit that's involved in it. Last year, there were 43 permits issued just for changing out windows alone.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, thanks for the update. Fire department, we have a written update in the packet. We have no updates for 5 and 6, and then a written update from the police department in the packet as well, correct? All right, city manager comments, anything?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just like to cover a couple of highlights. I've started holding budget meetings with different departments to get a better handle on our revenue picture, and that will be followed by a cycle, obviously, of expenditure meetings, all geared toward producing a clear and progressive mid-year financial picture for us, and to set the stage for the following fiscal year's budget preparation. So it's been an eye-opening opportunity, and I've appreciated the time that department heads have spent answering my questions and explaining some things that made sense once somebody actually talked about them. You can't get too much from an Excel spreadsheet. It was my pleasure to be the guest speaker the other morning at the Turlock Sunrise Rotary at Latest. And when they say sunrise, they certainly do mean sunrise. But everybody was well fed and well informed, and it was a great experience, and I appreciated that. It was also my pleasure to visit the Municipal Services Department out at the Corporation Yard with Michael Cook. I had the chance to see the fleet maintenance operation, the wastewater plant, and to attend an all-hands meeting that's held that Michael holds quarterly with the staff out there. And I just want to commend and compliment Michael and the folks who work for him that help make this city work on a day-to-day basis. And Garner Reynolds is out there stepping in on a temporary basis, kind of being the hands-on guy on site, and he's doing an outstanding job out there. Our city is blessed not only with exceptional supervisors and managers, but more importantly, the people who are out there doing the work every day, our line employees, and the dedication and the energy they bring to their jobs is inspiring. Additionally, it was my pleasure to attend the Assyrian Festival out at the fairgrounds. I saw many of the familiar faces from this room were out there, and it was a great exposure to a very significant part of our culture here in Turlock, and I certainly enjoyed every minute of it, and I look forward to going to many more of those to come. I attended the League of California Cities Conference from September 12th to the 14th down at Long Beach, and there was a long menu of seminars and meetings, revenue options, annexations, financial health, cannabis, which is topic A in a lot of areas, collective bargaining strategies, homelessness, municipal financial updates, and Prop 6, which is the proposal to repeal the transportation funding under SB 1. All hot topics, all well presented, and I came back with a much broader understanding of a few things. And then I returned today from the International City County Management Association meeting in Baltimore, where city and county managers from across the country, in fact across the world, come. We had good meetings on public safety operations, priority-based budgeting and community engagement, customer service in the public sector, data-driven management, crisis leadership, and again, legal cannabis implications for local governments. So your manager is got a bag full of brochures and a bag full of presentations, and I look forward to working with department heads as we go through the year. And I think that's it. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you so much. All right, moving on, matters selected for the agenda and non-agenda items. I don't see any. Council items for future consideration. Yes, yes.
Just a couple, I know I've been asking for about a year and a half now, probably, succession planning. I think it's something we need to talk about. We do have vacancies, and they are important to us. How we talk about customer service, that when you have this many vacancies, you're just not functioning properly. As well, I think we need to have an economic strategic plan workshop and talk about what we're gonna do, how we're gonna do it. I know you're speaking to our departments about how much money they're spending and how much they need, but we already know that there's a problem. And I'm not trying to be an alarmist, I'm not making this political. This is a problem. No matter what, I'm on council for 2 more years and we're spending down, and I'm concerned. Which brings me to the third, is that we need to start talking about whether we should freeze every spending. If we need to talk about the 4/5 and when we're gonna meet that limit, where I don't know that everyone on council knows what that means. We need to know where we're at. We don't wanna get to 0 and say, oh geez, we don't have any money. We need to start talking about it before we get there. And then on a light note, a lot of people have asked me, why is it that we, the city, tell everyone that they have to water at certain times and certain days, depending on odd or even, but we do it whenever we want. And it kind of doesn't look right when you talk about customer service. We need to start looking at, if we're gonna ask people to do stuff, unless there's a really super good reason, we probably shouldn't be doing our watering at hours when others aren't doing it, just so that we're trying to be fair with the public. We'll ask you to do something we're doing.
Thank you. City Manager, can you work with the 2 items and then?
I would be happy to, but I also would like to take a moment, and I would invite, I think, Allison to come up to talk about the watering, because obviously, you know, the parks are the gem of our city, and they're a very visible place, and I know exactly what you mean. We have schedules for watering. So when I water at the house, I'm watering with city water that is potable. It's drinkable water. And obviously, we want to be very careful with that precious resource. But I'm going to let Allison speak to how we water in our parks and how that all works, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. Mayor and Council, as you well know, we've been experiencing a drought for several years now. As a result of that, the landscaping in all of our parks, as well as our trees, have suffered greatly throughout the community. And so while we make every attempt to try and stick to the watering schedule that we ask our community to adhere to, there are significant challenges when you're talking about watering a space as large as Donnelly Park versus, you know, the average residential backyard or front yard, I should say. And so what we have attempted to do is to zone our larger landscaped areas. And so to the average person who might be, say, walking around Donnelly Park every day for their morning walk, it might be that they see sprinklers coming on every single day. However, what we would say to them is that you should not see the same set of sprinklers come on. What you might see is one zone watering one day and then the next day another zone. And the reason that we have to do that is because our infrastructure is so old that we simply don't have the water pressure to turn everything on at the same time and get adequate water applied to the trees. And I say that because with the drought, our priority is no longer keeping things green and clean, which was our motto, I think, 10, 15 years ago. Now it's just put enough water on it so that the trees don't stress. That is our focus, and we've really struggled with that because we know that our neighborhood parks, especially to those that live in and around those neighborhoods, that's important to them. They want to have a usable space. So it's been a constant challenge to balance the expectation to minimize our watering as much as possible, but then also to maintain our investment and to keep these spaces as usable as possible. And I have to say, we don't have a perfect science, in terms of having this issue figured out. It would be wonderful if we could obtain additional funding through grants and things like that to update our infrastructure. That would be great. I think there's some expectation in the community that we have a big SCADA system with screens that tells us, sprinkler number 3099 is out, or it's, but we don't have that kind of infrastructure. We actually rely and depend on our community to give us a heads up that, hey, you've got a sprinkler broken over here, you need to fix it. We welcome that feedback, but again, it's our goal to stick with the schedule as much as we can, but admittedly, for some of these larger areas, it's not possible to stay within those guidelines. We respect our counterparts in municipal services, and they are always kindly asking us to try and stick with that as much as possible. We want to, but I hope that gives you sort of a background on what the different competing interests are for us, and how we're trying to manage all of those variables.
Mr. Cook, oh yeah.
Thank you for that. I hope that everyone has asked me in the last 2.5 months about that. We're listening so that they can hear that we are actually trying to adhere to it, and it's not do as they say, not as I do. Thank you.
Try. Thank you.
Just to piggyback on that, so we're 2-day-a-week watering right now, so Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday. On those days, our water system is hammered by the residents. So in your water conservation ordinance, large landscape areas, institutional ones basically, are allowed an alternative schedule that meets the intent of the ordinance that helps us with our water pressures. So I work with the school district, I work with churches, and particularly Parks and Rec, to say, you can water 2 days a week. Let's find 2 days a week that works for you, that takes you out of our peak times, so you're not putting the pressure on our water system, so you can get better pressure and water less. So Allison's area do a great job of what I tell them, each sprinkler head pops up twice a week. Figure out how to do that so it works for you. That way you're meeting the intent of the ordinance of 2-day-a-week watering, but you're not putting the pressure on the rest of the system that's affecting our residents. So again, sometimes the optics don't look good, and we do try with educational outreach, but actually they are abiding by the ordinance, and by doing it the way they do, they can run their water, get better pressure, and actually get the parks greener quicker without running the sprinklers as long with lower pressure. So it's actually, in some respects, somewhat better. I hope that answers your question, but that is a good question. It's glad to get it out there to the public.
Thank you. Additional items for future consideration. All right, council comments, looking left, looking right. Yes, Councilmember DeHart.
Yes, I was overwhelmed with the city manager's report of League of California Cities Conference. Had the opportunity to attend as well, and I think there's a lot of scary educational experiences, those things that really gave us pause to consider the future of both ordinance, practice, what's coming down from the state, over which we have absolutely no input or control. And but very, very helpful, I think, to re-engage with leaders around the state who are facing exactly the same thing. I think anytime I ever go there, I'm always real glad to get back to Turlock, where we don't have the same sorts of issues. So wonderful time, I think, had by all.
Thank you. Yeah, Councilmember Scarry.
Well, I also was at the league and attended many of the seminars, and the information is overwhelming. It was good to go to the seminar on the cannabis, because as you know, the ad hoc committee is working on that and trying to get as much information as we can to share with Turlock. And so we got a little bit of information. I would hope for a little bit more, but all the seminars that we attended were of value to me, and I think that that the League of Cities seminars is definitely not a waste of the money that we use to go down there. There's plenty of information to bring back. I'm still looking at videos, going over some of the information from some of the seminars that I couldn't attend, because there are so many different things going on at the same time. So I think we've got information that we can share with the city. I think it's good.
No additional comments. Closed session items. What do we have?
Mayor, we do have a closed session today. Conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, 3 cases, and that's pursuant to California Government Code 54956.9D2.
All right, thank you. Do I have a motion to adjourn to closed session? Do I have a second? The motion by Councilmember Blulock, second by Councilmember DeHart. All those in favor say aye. Aye. To adjourn.
Wayne, is that what you might say for the